Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy, Sports and Fitness Rants? I'm back, guys. Click that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Got another great video for you guys today. As usual, you guys know the deal on this channel, man. We must continue to stand up, set the record straight, stop the lies, stop the narratives, y'all. Stop the losers from rewriting the history. And in this video, we're going to do a We Done With the 90s, and this is going to be the All-Star Game edition. That's right, I did a We Done With the 90s Dream Team edition earlier, and in this one, we're going to talk about the All-Star Games. And this is going to be the We Done With the 90s All-Star Game edition, how this era has completely destroyed the All-Star Game and what the All-Star Game used to mean to the true real basketball fans, y'all. And I want to thank everyone out there, man, for real, man. Everyone across the states, everyone across the world, man. Shout out to all you guys out there, man, for real, man. Everybody in the membership, man. Yo, I am truly humble about all support, guys. Truly, truly humble, man. Like I said, this channel's nothing without everybody out there, man. So much respect to the true fans that are standing up, man, against this stuff. You guys know the deal, man. And you guys know what to do. Turn the volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Remember, these videos are for educational purposes. And let's roll. So, yes, guys, like I said, man, this is going to be the We Done With the 90s All-Star Game edition. Because we all have seen and we all know what the All-Star Game has become over the last several seasons. With the latest edition of the All-Star Game, right? I did a live stream about that, right? The latest edition of the All-Star Game was a complete joke, guys. It was a laughing stock of epic proportions. I mean, like, for real, guys, you got any true basketball fan knows straight up and down that the All-Star Game used to mean something. It used to matter, y'all. It did. And when we're talking about We Done With the 90s edition and we're talking about All-Star Games, you damn right the All-Star Games mattered in the 90s, y'all. You know it. I told you guys my favorite All-Star Game moment is Magic Johnson coming back in 1992, man, and the performance he put on in that All-Star Game to me, man. It was nothing short of sensational, spectacular. You talk about timing, you talk about being great when it's time to be great. You know, that was Magic Johnson, man. Like I said, coming back, the people voted him on. You know what I'm saying? Remember, he came out with the HIV and stuff, man. The people voted him on. He came out. He put on the show. He won the MVP. He went one-on-one with Isaiah Thomas. He went one-on-one with Michael Jordan. You know, it was, like I said, man, it was just one of the greatest moments, man. That was the 1992 All-Star Game, man. That game was sensational. Sensational. We're talking about all the games in the All-Star games in the 1990s. Because it mattered. Right, we're talking about the All-Star Game, man. What I used to talk to you guys, I told you guys in this channel about how the All-Star Game used to go down back in the 90s. These guys oftentimes would put on a show. That's what they did, man. They put on a show. We're talking about the first quarter, second quarter. And then the second half would come, and all of a sudden, these guys are playing defense. But all the quarters, these guys were hustling and playing defense. But at the same time, they were putting on a show. They were a little bit more lax than they normally would be. But whenever it came time for crunch time, right? Like I said, the second half, the fourth quarter especially, these guys were playing defense. Go look at the total number of fouls that were called in these All-Star games in the 90s. You're talking about 25, 30 foul calls on each team in these games. That's right, in All-Star games, y'all, fouling. They're having more fouls than three-point shots, right? Because that's the big problem with the All-Star game right now. Or one of the big problems of the All-Star game, because there's a lot of big problems with the All-Star game. But the style of play, like I said, is complete garbage right now. It's literally turned into a three-point contest, right? That's one of the biggest problems with the All-Star game right now. When you look at the All-Star games of the 90s, it was literally a microcosm of what you had during the regular season. But it was enhanced because you had the best players out there, not some good players and a couple of role players and some bench guys. You had the best players, the all-stars from the NBA, the representatives out there. So you had the highest quality of play, right? That's how it should always have been. But all of a sudden now the All-Star game has turned into the opposite of that, where you're supposed to have the highest quality of play. Now we have a bunch of guys running around, chucking up shots, looking like a bunch of goofballs out there. They're just, like I said, a bunch of idiots. That's what the All-Star game has turned into. A little clown show. It's Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey out there. That's literally what it was, especially this last season, man, when you guys like Karl Anthony Towns running out there trying to do these fancy dunks looking like a clown. You had everybody mocking each other out there. Damian Lillard's chucking up threes all over the place. Like, you would have thought that there was no time left on the clock when some of these shots was going up. They were just chucking up shots from wherever. This is what the NBA All-Star Game has deteriorated into over the seasons. But in the 90s, guys still posted up. Guys still banged for rebounds. Guys still hustled. Like I said, they were still running the fast breaks out there. But they also had the highlight plays, right? There was no dirty, cheap fouls out there, but they were still playing the game a little bit. They were still hustling at certain points. And then, like I told you, in the second half, the fourth quarter, all of a sudden, these guys would crank it up because there was a rivalry there. There was always an East-West rivalry, right? And what has happened to the NBA All-Star Game? Up until last season, they had that Team LeBron, or they had team captains, right? Team LeBron versus Team Durant and Team Steph, or, Team Giannis, whatever the case may be. They turned it into, a mockery. Instead of it being a traditional East versus West where there's a certain kind of rivalry going, right? Like I said, guys had little battles there, personal grudges, the East versus the West. I told you in the 90s, the East was known as being the more physical, right, defensive-minded conference. The Western Conference was known for being more of an up-and-down kind of conference, more of a run and shoot, more high fly, more points scored in the Western Conference. That's what they were known for on both sides. So when you think about the All-Star Game coming, now you have those kinds of styles, so to speak, colliding in the All-Star Game. This is what you had, right? A battle of wills, so to speak. And like I said, there was a rivalry with the best players, the Hakeems versus Michael Jordans, and like I said, Charles Barkley in the early into mid-90s and stuff like that, right? And Karl Malone and all these guys that were battling year after year in the All-Star Games. There's a rivalry there with Patrick Ewing and some of these guys, right? The Dikembe Mutombos and the Alonzo Mournings, right? These guys develop a rivalry, the big men. They're battling each other. Michael Jordan and Clyde Drexler, right? Now Michael Jordan's teaming up with Reggie Miller now, right? Now he's on the same squad with some of these guys. Now they have a little thing, right? Like that was part of it, man. You got to see some of these guys play together, their styles, right? Isaiah Thomas and Michael Jordan, you got to see that. Right? Isaiah Thomas don't have nothing really nice to say about Michael Jordan all these years later, but on the basketball court, they had the chemistry going out there in the All-Star Game, right? Because they had the game, right? Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, right? Scottie Pippen ain't got really much to say either, right? But when you watch them on the court in the All-Star Game, right, they did their thing out there. The All-Star Game mattered, like I said, and we done with the 90s. Y'all done. You guys, look at, as I said, they're not living up to the standard. Whatever I told you guys, they want to be done with the 90s. Why? Because they want us to stop upholding the standard. Stop holding them to the standard that they can't live up to. So they came with those team captains and they jacked up the whole Eastern Western Conference thing. They just went back to it last year, but because of the way the game is played, it was even worse. It didn't help. And I wrote down some numbers, guys, as it pertains just to those three-point shootings, and I told you how was like the game is completely devolved into nothing but, like I said, three-point contest. I want you guys to look at this. In the 1990s, right, you have I wrote down the three-point attempts for each side, right? The highest year here, guys, was 1997, where the Eastern Conference team shot 29 three-pointers. They shot 29 three-pointers in that All-Star game, the whole team. 29, all right? The other years, the highest for the Western Conference was 1995. They shot 27, guys. That was the most three-point attempts in an All-Star game. These other seasons, 1990, 10 three-pointers attempted by the East, 11 for the West. 1991, 7 three-pointers attempted, 7, guys, by the East, 12 for the West. 1992, 13 three-pointers attempted from the East, 20 for the West. 1993, 22 for the East, 19 for the West. 1994, 24 for the East, 6 for the West. 6 three-pointers attempted, guys, by the All-Star team, 6 for the West in 1994. 1995, 22 for the East, 27 for the West. 1996, 15 for the East, 25 for the West. 1997, 29 for the East, 21 for the West. And in 1998, 25 for the East and 23 for the West. Remember, there was no All-Star game in 1999 because of the lockout shortened season. So as you guys can see, like I told you, this is because the game was more balanced, like I'm always telling you guys. And if you go through the history, it deteriorates, right? Into the 2010s, into the 2010s. So we done with the 90s. We done with the 2010s. I've told you guys, they've been exposed. They've exposed themselves. We've allowed them to hang themselves. I mean, this is what they've done. I told you, they've abused all the power that they were given. And look what they did to the All-Star game. Look what they did to it. Remember, guys, the All-Star game was supposed to always be for the fans, for the people. That's what the All-Star game was supposed to be for. The three-point contest, the slam dunk contest. The All-Star Weekend is supposed to be for the fans, a celebration of the talents of the NBA for the fans. They should also want to go out there and put on a show. And this is what we get, right? So we see this game, they're not chucking up threes. They're doing other things. They're highlighting their overall skills, the well-roundedness of the game, the inside-out game, the flash, the pizzazz. It was all there in higher levels because they were doing it against more resistance. It was more respected. Now let's look at some of the numbers, guys. I wrote down some of the numbers over the past several seasons in the All-Star game. And these are three-pointers attempted from each team, and it's astronomical. 2017, 59 for the East. 59. Remember, the highest on the East, guys, in the 90s was 29. So they've already exceeded by 30. 30 on the attempts. 80 for the West. 83 pointers attempted, guys, in the 2000. Guys, and that was 2016. 2016. 80 from the West. 59 for the East. 2017, 59 once again for the East. 63 for the West. 2018, 58 for the East. 65 for the West. 2019, 90 for the East, 77 for the West. 90, guys. 2020, 70 for the East, 40 for the West. It's not bad, 40, right? 2021, 61 for the East. Oh, wait, well, this is one of the East, excuse me, this is when so these last couple, I don't think was a East-West thing. This is when there was a LeBron James, it was like the team captain, so I don't know if it was the East versus West, but it was 61 threes to 72. Then it was 62 threes to 59, 66 threes to 60. And then last year's All-Star game, you had 97 threes taken by the East. Remember, they went back to the East versus West. 97 taken by the East, guys. Listen to that. 97 three-pointers were taken in an NBA All-Star game. And for the West, 71. 71, guys. That is insane. Insane. So remember, in the 90s, the highest on the East was 29, or just the highest in general was 29, and then the highest in the West was 27. Those are the two highest. And the highest since 2016 I just did was 80 on one side and 97 on the other side. 80 and 97. That's crazy. That's a three-point contest, guys. That is guys just chucking up threes. That's not fun to watch. Who wants to see guys shoot 150 three-pointers plus in an All-Star game? You don't want to see that nonsense? Nobody wants to see that guys walking. I told you, I watched the whole second half. I don't remember seeing anyone run full speed. None. I don't think anybody broke a sweat. Meanwhile, the guys in the 90s, we done with the 90s, the standard they upheld, they was out there balling, man. Putting on a show for the fans. We remember them All-Star games. They mattered. The 96 All-Star game was special. 98 was special. Kobe and Jordan. Come on, man. Stop it right now. The All-Star games, 93. You crazy. These All-Star games, like I said, these were great players who played out there. Especially in them early 90s, man. Them early 90s All-Star games, there was nothing but Hall of Famers out there. Nothing but Hall of Famers. First ballots. 1990, 91, 92, 93. There was some straight first ballots out there, a lot of them dudes, man. It's crazy. You guys know the deal, man. Once again, when they say we done with the 90s, no. Y'all can't live up to the standard of the 90s All-Star Game edition. They cannot live up to the All-Star games of the 90s. This whack team captain nonsense that they came with, it was a joke. I told you, once the last Warriors, the last group of Warriors left the NBA, the Kevin Garnetts, the Dirk Nowitzkis, the Jason Kidds, the Kobe Bryants, the Tim Duncans, the Kevin Garnetts, right? Once all of them dudes was gone, then that was it, man. That was it. The standard has been gone. Gone. All-Star game has fallen apart right before our eyes. It's a joke right now. We done with the 90s. Y'all can never be done with the 90s. It's the golden era. There's a reason for that. Once again, the guys hustled in the All-Star games. I told you, there were a lot of All-Star games I looked at, guys, where they had more fouls than three-pointers attempted. Last year, I believe, there were maybe 3 fouls called in the entire game, I want to say. Maybe 3 fouls called, guys. Maybe. Other games, 25 fouls. 20 fouls. 15 fouls. Like, it's crazy. There were guys fouling out of some of these All-Star games of the past. Besides, not even just the 90s, just All-Star games in general. But remember, we done with the 90s. They ain't lived up to the past eras, man. Like I said, the All-Star games. I told you there were rivalries. These guys wanted to test themselves. There was friendly rivalries there, man. These guys went at each other. It was East versus West. Even the jerseys was better back in the 90s, man. The All-Star game jerseys. They were even better. You guys know the deal. It's the golden era, man. We done with the 90s. You can never be done. You can't be done with the history. Remember, you can never be done with the history. And the history states that this era, this 2010s into this 2020, right? That crossover, right? It's not looking real good for them, man. They're on the wrong side of history. Because on the other side of the history is all the other previous eras that, once again, I told you, laid out the foundation for these guys. They paved the way. And they're not living up to the standard. They're not. And I told you, if they're not going to uphold the standard, then damn it, we have to do it. And no, it's not easy, man. We got to deal with these fools out here. These fake cowards. They don't know nothing about the game. They're not real fans, man. Because once again, they won't even hold these guys accountable. They won't uphold that standard. They won't do it. They won't come to terms with the reality. And the reality is that if they want to be done with the 90s, that's great. But like I said, unfortunately, society, the world, everyone knows that the 90s will always be the standard, the golden era, the crossover from the 80s to the 90s. When we're talking about that transition, we're talking about some of the greatest players, the most iconic players. It's a combination, right? The Moses Malones, the Dr. J's, right? The Kareem Abdul-Jabbars, the George Gervins, right? The Larry Birds, the Magic Johnsons, the Isaiah Thomases, the Dominique Wilkins, right? The Michael Jordans, the Hakeem Olajuwons, right? The Patrick Ewings, the Karl Malones, the John Stocktons, the Scottie Pippens, the Chris Mullins, the David Robinsons, the Tim Hardaways, the Shaquille O'Neals, the Jason Kidds, the Grant Hills, the Penny Hardaways, the Kobe Bryants, the Vince Carters, the Tim Duncans, the Kevin Garnett's, the Dirk Nowitzkis, the Steve Nashes. We're talking about all of these players played from the 80s into the 90s. This is the golden era. This was the most popular era, the most popular time period in the history of the game. So damn it, we never gonna be done with the 90s. And y'all ruined the All-Star game. They ruined the All-Star game. Look what they, it's a mockery. 97 three-pointers. The hell are y'all doing? Standing around. Walking around. No love of the game, no respect for the fans. People paid all that money to be there. And they got to watch that. That's what they got. Back in the 90s, you went to an All-Star game. Shout out to anybody that ever been to an All-Star game in the 90s. Put it in the comments if you've been to one. That's crazy. I know they was out there putting on a show. I remember watching them games. Some grown men out there giving the effort. Like I said, man, it's East versus West. East versus West. You guys know the deal, man. Catch you guys on the next one.